Are you struggling with fear, depression, or anxiety? Are you in search of meaning and purpose? Would you like help navigating your current life circumstances? Tarot can help. Tarot is a powerful tool for healing, introspection, and spiritual awakening. The Esoteric Toolkit is a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. It consists of tarot, numerology, astrology, and the Hermetic principles, in conjunction with the modern science of consciousness. The revelation and application of this knowledge gives you the tools you need to help master your life, organize your mind, and overcome depression, fear, and anxiety. Learn to manifest your dreams and come into alignment with your highest self and the universe. Book your private one-on-one tarot reading today. Click the link in the description or go to www.theorderofchaosmagic.com. You can also find monthly tarot packages, a private Discord community featuring shadow work, and Mercury retrograde support groups, and much more by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theorderofchaos.
The following message is transmitted.
All right. Welcome back to the Order of Chaos podcast. Today, my guest is Robert Peter. Robert is a Solomonic magician specializing in spirit communication. And Robert, it's so good to have you on the show.
Yes, it's lovely to be here. Really excited to be
yeah.
here. So thank you. Yeah.
For a
It's
second.
been a while.
Yeah, well, listen, this keeps happening. It's interesting because I genuinely don't know what the universe is trying to tell me because I love doing this show. But recently, every time I try to line up a podcast, something goes wrong. Something goes wrong. Somebody has to cancel. Somebody gets sick. It's happened so frequently that it's concerning me because, you know, part of what I teach my own students is if the universe keeps putting roadblocks in your way, there's a reason for it. Right. But I love doing this show. So I don't know. I'm just going to, you know, try and meditate on that and sort it out. Or maybe I just need to be more organized as a person.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing you just touched on, like straight from the get-go. Like, don't always blame stuff on magic, really. Like, sometimes it's just down to our organizational abilities or just other stuff. So yeah, it's like, oh, why did I miss that bus? You know what I mean? Oh, did I manifest this or whatever? It's like, no, you woke up late because you stayed up all night reading grimoires and learning the herbal correspondences and whatever, you know. So yeah, that's how it gets magical. That's the only magical part about it, was the fact that he was reading a magic book. That's why he woke up late. Yeah.
You know what, that happens to me a lot because I actually have I live my life pretty rigorously by my schedule, and I have scheduled to read every day between 10 and 11 p.m. And normally like midnight will roll around and I'll be, oh shit, I was supposed to go to bed an hour ago.
Yeah, I know all about that, mate. Yeah. I consecutively, like, especially with working with planetary hours and stuff, I often find myself being like, oh, hang on a minute, like 3 a.m. is the last chance I get to do this working today, so I better get ready and crack on. So yeah, it's quite intense sometimes, but good. It's good. It's all good fun.
Yeah. So, to begin, why don't you just share with us a little bit about who you are and how you came to be where you are and who you are now?
Yeah, sure. So, my name's Robert Peter, Sacred Heart Occult, and presently I'm working in the Solomonic tradition, in combination with a whole bunch of other stuff, but predominantly it's Christian Mysticism, and that has been a thing that's built up over many iterations of self, if you will, shedding of the skin, evolution, blah blah blah. You know, same with most occultists. But what's quite cool, what I find about my journey, which is, you know, back yourself, is the deity side of things, in regards to working with various different deities through various different traditions, and then all interweaving, synergizing, etc., etc. So yeah, it's quite an in-depth journey, if you will. yeah, I could sit there for hours, describing all the intricacies and all the variables and everything else. But yeah, any particular point you wanted to touch on with that question at all?
No, just I'm always interested in hearing people's stories, how they got involved in magic, because most of my friends, people who I
Yep.
associate with personally, do magic. And sometimes I forget that the outside world, there's the whole, vast majority of the world has no idea that we exist or that we talk about this stuff, or, that
Mm,
we, most of us have pretty incredible stories as to how we got involved in this thing that most people know nothing about.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
fascinating to hear. And I think that, part of, my desire is to bring more people into the world of occult, which is,
yes.
totally antithetical to the way we, used to do things with the whole to know, to dare, to will, to keep silent bullshit, which, like, I understand
Mm.
why it was there in the first place, and for good reason, right? But I think now we're living in an age where if people don't have this information, we're way more fucked than if they do have it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like in that regard, it's kind of like not telling people the whole secret. Like you can still keep that ethos, right? But it's just like going, oh, come and see. You know what I mean? Like come and look how great this is, and then letting people discover the world for themselves. And I think that's the beauty of it. Yeah, what we were describing is like obviously giving out information and helping people out, which is amazing, like 100%. That's what I kind of relate to the mystery traditions in the first place, having like discover what there actually is about the world and stuff like that. If you remove the element of wonder from it and like amazement, then it's not as great. Like, it's still great, right? It's still great, but it's just not as like it doesn't hit with the same impact. So it's like if you spoil a film for someone, they're going to be like, "What's the point of me watching that film?" Because I've now have your opinion, not opinion, but their viewpoint that's spoiling it first. So talking about journeys, one word or one name, both. Him. He was the cornerstone of it all, really. And it's quite interesting because I listened to a podcast a while ago in regards to your story of both about how he basically like airdropped you and picked you up and done whatever. It's the exact same, 100%.
Yeah.
Would I have it any other way? No, no. It was best thing, absolutely best thing, man. That's why yeah, when I listened to your story about it, I was just like, he did it to him too. how
Yeah.
how how many
Yeah.
how many people have he done this to? It's like both the cosmic Uber driver, you know what I mean? Just like dropping you off at destination, picking you up. So, yeah.
Well, and not just you, not just I. If you read the Sacred Geometry books by Junvalo Melchizedek, it's the same story there as well.
Oh
Thoth
really?
takes him on this journey, yeah, and directs him to all these places. And listen, I'm gonna say that sacred geometry, firstly, is a brilliant topic that I'm very passionate about. I personally think that Drunvalo exaggerates a lot in his books. That's my opinion.
Mm.
I think that there's a lot of coloring of situations there. Having had a very similar experience, I'm reading his and I'm thinking, okay, well, you're definitely, in my opinion, um inflating this a little bit for your readers, but the essence of the experience is very, very much the same. And I've heard this
Yeah,
from many occultists who have had contact with Thoth, that it's this experience of being led from one place to another in these synchronistic events, even led from one book to another book to another book. Is God. Of course, Thoth is the god of reading and writing, and he leads us on this journey, and he's kind of like acts like kind of like the White Rabbit, leading Alice to
hmm,
Wonderland. And then from
yeah,
there, like you were saying, it's this figuring it out for yourself, and this process of discovery is what makes it so incredible.
yeah, yeah. It's but you can't like the thing what you said there about like reading the book and stuff like that. Like you could read that in a book until it happens to you because it
Yeah.
spans over years. It's not just like a one and done like 365-day marathon of
Oh God,
like
no.
tradition jumping or whatever. It's like you sign a contract and in the small print, it's just like you like buckle up. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what's gonna happen. So but it always works out for the best. Like as long as you follow it, you know what I mean? As long as you just like follow your nose. We were talking about resistance, and like if you're resistant to that flow state or whatever, then that's when you're gonna hit the humps. But
Yeah.
the more like the better you are with it, like the smoother it goes, and then you can jump to the next book or the next part of the journey. And
Yeah.
like my only regret is that like I didn't follow stuff when I was told to, you know.
Yeah.
Like even in my path as like Solomon's magician and stuff, like I remember Thoth telling me ages ago, he was like, research it, do this. And I was like, no, this is far too complex for me. Like I'm not in this place in my life right now. Like you know what I mean? This is a lot. Because like Solomonic magic is a lot, you know what I mean? At its core, it's quite simple. If you want to break it down and sort of use it in a chaos magic sense, it's fine. Or simplify it, not a chaos magic sense, but yeah. But if you look at it head on and you're like, here's loads and loads of grimoires, here's all these techniques that you need to learn and everything else, and it's really overwhelming. But yeah, I didn't listen to him, and hence why that was delayed, really. But yeah, that's probably my only regret. But once I came out of the other side and saw what he was trying to teach me, and saw how intricately he weaved the fabric of progression, if you will, it was beautiful. And I was like, man, like, come on, this is some like poetry, you know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
like pure poetry of reality right here. And it was just like,
Yes.
yes. But
Yeah.
yeah, even
Uh,
like it's like you imagine a poem, right, where it's like even the way the spacing between each word is like perfectly formed, and yeah, I don't know, I can't force it in any way, shape, or form. It's a work of art, really. But yeah.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one of the ways I was always able to tell the difference between maybe my own thoughts, the closer to the beginning of my journey, like what am I making up versus what is being given to me from Thoth or from the spirit realm, would be the poetic beauty of it, because I'm not a poetic person. Like I'm not an artist. So when something is, very poetic and beautiful, I know that I sure as fuck didn't generate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he had me doing quite a lot of writing actually. And it was like I used to write, so I used to be a musician, I used to be a vocalist in like bands and stuff like that. But that was all him as well, teaching how to like project sound and project energy using your voice, like find the magician's voice and stuff like that. But he
Mhm.
did it in such an amazing way. That's what I mean about looking back at all the experiences and going, oh wait, hang on a minute, that was that was something. You know what I mean? Like that was amazing. What I find is that you tend to morph into that after a while. Like you become it. You know what I mean? It's almost like
Yeah.
you just like shedding the skin and then growing a new skin as well. But yeah.
So, question for you as a Solomonic magician: is your goal the knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel? Is that what you're aiming at?
If I said yes, I would be telling a half truth. So where I practice Christian mysticism, mainly in like the Catholic current, you've got that conversation with your guardian angel anyway. The only thing about like deepening, like using Solomonic magic and stuff like that, is that it just makes it a bit brighter and a bit louder sometimes. But I think like if you work in like Catholic current, then you've got that anyway. It's already there. But the thing is that like people shut themselves off to it, and I think that with certain like esoteric rites, such as the rite of the Bremlin and stuff like that, or the operation of the Bremlin, it's like they think that's the only way. Like some people, not all people, think that's the only way to get to knowledge and conversation with your guardian angel. But it's the
Mhm.
method to do it. Like the Catholic
Yeah.
way is like, okay, it's there, believe it's there because
Yeah.
it is there.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's a lot harder to just believe than it is to follow an operation. So if you follow an operation, then you know you're going to get it at the end, right? But if you have to
Yeah.
just believe, like you have to sustain that, like belief, you have to sustain it for a long period of time,
Mm.
which for some people is hard. If you once you've done the operation, it's one and done, and you know it's there. You know,
Yeah. So
but
would you say that some of the more complex magical operations, and of course the Abramelin ritual is the most complex, right? It's almost comically complex. But would you
yeah,
say, do you believe that the complexity of some rituals is there to serve a person who struggles to just believe.
Yeah, in some ways, yes. But it's also like humans like structure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They like things to be structured for a reason, stuff like that. Like if you give someone something, then they might not be appreciative of it, right? If you've gone through the hard work of doing that structure, it's very Sustaining if you think about it, right? But if you go through that structure, then you've earned it. You know what I mean? You haven't just been given to a plate, like you've gone through the trials and tribulations. It's the same as like when you look at some elaborate spell, which will take like 4 hours of prep, and then you have to like you have to fast for 3 days, and it's 4 hours of prep, and then you have to like I don't know, spend 10 hours doing it or whatever, versus someone casting a sigil, which takes like well, you know how long it takes, right? So it's
it's
just
5 minutes. Yeah,
yeah,
5 minutes
it's,
to do
yeah,
a
it's
really
something.
good job.
Yeah, exactly. It could achieve the same result, right? But they've just gone two different ways of going about it.
I swear to God, I just had deja vu of this conversation, but it wasn't just deja vu.
Yes.
I remember having this deja vu before. I'm having deja vu of a deja vu, which is fucking weird because I'm talking to you on my left monitor. I'm giving this a try instead of my right monitor, which is what I normally do. And I
Yeah.
know that this is the first time I've done this, but I just experienced like a double deja vu about this conversation.
What's really weird about this entire thing, right, is that when I kept looking at all like the technical faults we was experiencing and everything else, tonight I was like, no, this is it. This is the time it's actually going to work.
Yeah,
And then I was like outside, like prepping or whatever, and I thought, no, it's cool. Like this is how it's supposed to go down. This, and I was like, all right, yeah, cool. I'm cool with it. And it was like literally immediately into that flow state. I was like, yeah, cool. This is
that's
great.
so weird.
Yeah.
That's so weird, man. Because it was such an intense feeling of deja vu. But then, like also remembering that I'd experienced this particular deja vu before. Wow, I don't even know what to make of that. Okay, so um,
Both.
so I totally agree with you. Just going back to what we were talking about, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And myself as a chaos magician, and also whatever personality type I am, like I know my MTBI, and I know that I have ADHD and et cetera, blah blah blah. I don't think those define a person, but I really struggle with that structure that you're talking about. Like I really,
Mm.
really struggle with it. And I was saying earlier that I live my life pretty rigorously by my schedule, which is true, but I have to force myself to do it because I
Mm.
I just do everything better when I'm just kind of free flowing about everything. But it is so hard for me sometimes to be on time to shit or to live by that structure. But I desire that structure, but I'm so
Mm.
resistant to it. And
Mm.
I think this is one of the reasons why chaos magic works so effectively for me is that I have no trouble believing, none whatsoever,
Yeah.
even in the chaos magic sense of paradigm shifting and using belief as a tool. This is something I'm very good at. But that structure just I
Mm.
couldn't do the Abramelin ritual. You'd have to put a large pile of money in front of me or something I really want to get me to be able to generate the enthusiasm and the energy and the ability to go through that rigorous kind of process because it is so structured.
Yeah. It doesn't really suit everyone. Like structure doesn't really suit everyone, which is fine. But what I found is that like I used to think that I didn't like structure, right? And then I was like, no, 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 I really, really like it
Yeah,
because it allows you to like break stuff up. You're like, right, so especially with planetary magic, right? You're like, right, well, I'll just wait till Tuesday.
yeah,
It's fine, don't worry about it.
yeah,
It just takes a lot of stuff out. So when you go to Tuesday, you can just smash it out. So like you can unleash all of that like energy and stuff like that, and get stuff done. And that's when you use that like chaos. You know what I mean? Like the unmanifest, and you make it happen. But I was actually looking at stuff a while back, and I was like, hang on a minute, I've got a Capricorn moon. Yeah,
Mhm.
this is like that is like the captain of
Oh,
industry kind of vibe,
that'll
right?
do it. That's where that love of structure comes from for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was actually, yeah, I was resistant to structure, and then like when I fell into it, that was it. It was like, no, this is good. I'm good.
I want
But
that
yeah,
to happen to me. I really do. I want to fall in love with structure because I know that I need it, and I know that it's good for me, and I know that when I'm in that right perfect zone between flow state and structures, when I do my best work, I'm just so resistant to the structure.
Mhm. It's the thing is though, is that like what you have to think of is a river has structure, right? It has two banks, which directs the flow of the river, but the river itself is chaos, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's still a structure. Like what you're thinking about, like the way you work is still a structure. It's just not a like four walls and a ceiling and a floor structure. It's different. It's a fluid structure, so you still have it. You just need to harness, like you need to learn that structure. You know what I mean? Learn what that structure actually is. Once you got that sorted, you're good. It's so good. You'll fly, literally.
Yeah. I definitely see not only the appeal, but the benefit of it within a magical practice. Right. And so I'm trying to create some of that for myself, but it's definitely not natural for me. Going through this journey that you're on, having worked with Thoth and now doing Solomonic magic. I take it you've been studying the Cabala, Tree of Life, and those kind of related
Yeah,
fields.
yeah. So I used to be in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. But before that, there was always this like sort of like yearning for anywhere. I kind of like knew stuff about it and had experiences and stuff. And then when I went to the Golden Dawn, that's when it gave me that structure. That's why I was like, right, this is actually what's going on. Not so much like study now, if that makes sense. Just like
Mhm.
rehashing like other stuff really. But it's more like I've bought the puzzle, made the puzzle, deconstructed the puzzle. Now I'm seeing how the puzzle fits together again, if that makes sense. And I think that's the beautiful thing about like Cabala and Kabbalah and stuff like that. It's the gift that never stops giving because
Yeah.
there is so much in it. You can sit there and study it for like the rest of your life, and what people do, you know what I mean, and they don't they don't do anything else. In regards to what you're saying about like discovering it or whatever, like I think living Kabbalistically
Mhm.
is if on at least on the same level as importance to studying. Because if you're not living what you're studying, you know how that works, armchair magicians, blah blah blah,
Yep.
all that sub subsector of the occult community. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, then
but
you
yeah,
get
when you
the
start
perfect
living,
combination of that person that's both an armchair magician and an armchair psychologist, and they just like
yeah, yeah,
chronically online correcting everybody, freighter dipshit.
what like Reddit or something, Reddit,
Yeah.
Reddit Rambo of Reddit. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh man, someone
Um,
needs to do that. Superimpose a picture of Sylvester Stallone over like Crowley's head or something, and do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the tree of life and that Kabbalistic system being, kind of like a to reiterate what you said, you find something new every time you go back to it. It's
Mm,
exactly how I feel about the Hermetic principles, right? When I
yeah.
teach a course every month, I bring my students, go through this month-long process called Living Witchcraft, and we cover so much in that time. I talk really fast, but every time I give a lecture on the Hermetic principles, I discover something new every single
Mm,
time. And I've done this dozens of times at least. And I love that about some of these foundational magical workings or, magical understandings or systems that seem to be
mm,
foundational to many, many other systems, even if they're unaware of it. Right. And that really,
yeah.
to me, is always going back to the tree of life and the Hermetic principles are they've spread themselves out through every magical religion and practice in the Western world in one way or another.
Yeah. Even in the Eastern world as well. There's been many because one of my other specialties is like deity communication, sort of under the umbrella of spirit communication. Obviously that includes the dead and everything else as well. But every time I work one on one with a student or one on one with a client, like you're working with them on the tree of life, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like where do they fit into the overall garden? You know what I mean? It's just fantastic. And then from that, you then learn from yourself, or learn stuff for yourself, and you see like the sort of roots underneath the thing, under the earth. There we go.
Yeah.
And how it all gets put together. But yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about, and my friend Dyra, who you also know, is extremely passionate about it. That's why we're doing a thing called like Tree of Life and Death. So I'm taking Tree of Life, and Dyra is taking Tree of Death. So we're basically taking on students, if you will, or people that are interested in the course, and we are running them through the structure of it all. The course itself has a massive emphasis on personal experience rather than just textbook, read, done. You know what I mean? Because when I
Yeah,
was in the Golden Dawn, it was very much like that, like textbook, done. And it didn't like allow the magicians to breathe really. Not from my perspective. And I know there's like some counterpoints to that, like no, you just go in there to learn and it's all individual and stuff like that. But like I think when you're going into something like that, especially blindfolded, essentially, without knowing like what anything really is, like you need a good guide, you need a good teacher. So that's what was the main inspiration behind the Tree of Life and Death. So yeah, it was like having someone there to really make sure you're good because this stuff hardcore, man. Like
yeah, it
especially
is.
your sword, man. Like your sword, like we spoke before, your sword. When you get into your sword, like get good. Like make sure you're good. Like take time, self care, all that kind of stuff. It's rough, you know.
Yeah. So explain Yasad for me.
Your sword, astral realm. Lots of things. Illusion, really. I think when we spoke before, we spoke about like your sort of consciousness and stuff like that, and about how like a lot of people are stuck in that your sort of consciousness, but they think they've kind of reached the top. It basically represents the moon for lay people that aren't in the
Yeah.
know of fabulous stuff.
So we're
And
talking
it's kind
about
of like
like the 12th house, the astral, the subjective reality, the dream
yeah,
realm. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. But it's like if you yeah, brilliant. So if you say about subjective reality, it's basically like a lot of people go into your sword and then they're just basically stuck in that subjective reality because they see that as the absolute reality.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's because like if like Kabbalistically anyway, the light from the sun comes through the moon, blah blah blah, and it like they go, oh well that light's there, that's the only light, you know what I mean? But then they don't see the rest of the tree around it, and yeah, like but it's a really good testing ground. Like I can chat crap about it all day and run it into the mud. Um, but it's a really good testing ground for a magician. To really like cut your teeth in, to really like know your worth and get good before you go into the other stuff. I like it, but I also hate it at the same time. When you escape it, or when you kind of like wake up, it's like when you wake up in a dream, you start lucid dreaming, right? It's like when you're in your soul, you could be like overwhelmed by all of these like, projections and stuff like that. And then when you wake up in your soul, you're like, hang on a minute, I can make stuff happen.
Yeah.
I'm actually in control here. And once you're in control, you're good. But the thing is that most people don't realize that they have that level of control. And that's where the problems hit, right?
Yeah. So what I've kind of boiled it down to in my way of looking at it, because I've experienced witnessing a few people go through occult psychosis, right? And it's really not pretty. It's a very real thing. Um, so just like you were saying, when a person is in that subjective reality realm and they mistake it for objective reality, they don't know that it's subjective, right? They believe this is objective reality. That's when you get occult psychosis, right? That's when
Yeah.
you get that person who believes that they are the reincarnation of Archangel Michael, and they have the mission that they're on, and while they might be very real in their subjective reality, and there might be important information in that experience in that time and space, when you bring that back to objective reality as if it's 100% real, you're going to run into some troubles. You might end up in a tight coat.
Yeah. Yeah. And not because you bought the wrong size in the shop either. So yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's
So that's go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say yeah, it is rough, but that's why I like what you're doing as well. I actually love what you're doing. You should be in that guide, you know what I mean? You're being that voice of reason, or you're at least Like the least point, you're making space, like you're creating space for people to have those experiences in a safe manner. At most, like you're doing a great job. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the best of both. But yeah, I think that's really
And
important in the occult world. Like, sorry, that's what I was saying about like looking up stuff on YouTube and learning stuff from YouTube. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these people that you're learning stuff from YouTube, TikTok, and stuff like that, they could be very well in that subjective reality, and you might not know that. The way you don't have the gift of discernment or the ability to discern because you're a beginner yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's a beginner once and always actually. But you don't have the ability to discern whether they are actually in that subjective reality. Therefore, you're going to take what they say as gospel, and then you're going to preach it just like it is. So yeah.
so what steps do you take or did you take earlier in your own journey to discern the subjective from the objective? And then also I just wanted to say that there's another phenomenon that you see all over the world is people reject their subjective reality entirely because it's not objective, right? And so they completely ignore the power of your subjective reality. And as you were saying, that's where a magician does their work, right? It's extremely powerful, but you need to know what it is and understand that it's your own subjective reality. So how do
Yeah.
you talk people through that, or how did you talk yourself through it?
So basically, like I grew up in a place where like spirituality wasn't really a thing, um, and learned techniques from a very early age in order to like circumvent all of these issues. One of them being that I learned that the people around me who said they were like spiritual gurus and so on and so forth, man, they weren't it. You know, they were. It was very much like physical medium, not physical mediumship stuff, like evidential mediumship, sort of like like I don't know, Doreen's virtue oracle cards, stuff like that. It was like it wasn't what I wanted. Right, that's cool, do what you want, right? But it wasn't what I wanted, and I thought there was more. Like, I always had a yearning for more. I mean, now I'm doing something like magic, so yeah, like I can see the path that I'm eventually going to end up at. But basically, I was like, right, like I know there are people in spirit that can help me. I know there's like thingy like beings that are there that if I call on them, they're going to assist me. So I just learned by them instead, and that was the best choice I made. Would I advise that to everyone? No, because you get trickster spirits and stuff like that, and I was very lucky in my journey that the majority of them weren't tricksters. I did encounter some, but I also learned countermeasures in order to squash that experience out and deal with it and learn from it. But that's another thing entirely. But yeah, having a good spirit, like a spiritual support, is amazing because if you're in your slot, right, and you have a good strong lunar guide like Saint Gabriel or Archangel Gabriel, solid. You know what I mean? Like absolutely amazing. Any of the other lunar deities probably equally as good. I think Gabriel's amazing. Always got time for Gabriel. They will help you through the dark side of the moon, shall we say. They'll keep their little flashlight on and just shine that bit of illumination and go, no, 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 turn here, turn there. You know what I mean? So even if you correspond that to like this tarot card of the moon, like you just have to keep following the light of the moon, right? And get, like even if the stuff's at either side, you just have to keep walking. But the moon in that tarot card for me is an actual representation of the deity or the the intelligence, shall we say, that has made made itself a match for you, or you've made yourself a match for it due to
Yeah.
your unique astrological makeup and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah. And your belief system, right? Like what your culture, your belief system, your astrology, everything, it all
yeah,
comes together to create who you are and then what you can relate to on that
yeah,
vibratory level. So
yeah.
whatever
It's
gods
yeah,
it may be, that are correct for you,
it's
or spirits, whatever.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's what you can handle as well. I mean, like when I first saw an angel, they were just typical humanoid figure. Sometimes now when I see angels, there's an eye surrounded by a cloud of lightning and magnificence, yeah. And then or they have like the heads of like the animal heads and stuff like that. So yeah, like they've evolved over time. I saw who was it? Samael or Samael in some places. He was just an eye, and then he had wings, and then the wings were covered in eyes, and there was just this like haze of mist around him. And then when I worked with him at a working for Justice Working, he transformed into a humanoid form, and he had two swords and looked very angry. He looked like a member from like the Expendables or something. I was like, well, they could have used him on their team, you know what I mean? That film, he would have wrecked. But yeah, it's interesting.
I used to joke, or I still do, that if churches and publications depicted biblically accurate angels, like all
Mm,
the metalheads in the world would be Christian, because that shit's fucking metal. It's
yeah,
looks like something out of the movie Heavy Metal.
yeah. It makes just read Revelation. You know what I mean? Like if someone made a graphic novel of Revelation, there would be loads of converts everywhere. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I wonder if that
but
exists. That'd be sick.
mate, do it. Just do it. There you go. I'm giving you the golden egg.
I
Gonna
don't
do it.
have
I
I
think,
don't have
mate.
artistic ability like that. Nor I mean, also I know so. I'm not going to say so little about Abrahamic lore. I know quite a bit, but I'm not a scholar on Abrahamic lore by any stretch of the imagination. Right? I
Yeah.
would love to read something like that was illustrated by a brilliant artist and written by
Mm,
somebody who really understood it. Like, God, that'd
mm.
be great too. What about a graphic novel of the Book of Enoch? How fucking rad would that be?
Mate, even a graphic novel would be like the Old Testament. Just
Yeah.
yeah, like yeah,
Yeah.
like you
Somebody do
can't you
this.
can't get
Somebody who's
more.
listening to this, please make this happen if you have the skills.
Oh, honestly, credit here though. No, I'm joking. It's fine. An idea is an idea. There you go. Have it for
Yeah,
free.
right.
But basically, it's like even this is the thing. So like when people look at like Christianity, now, oh, it's so like love and light stuff like that. I'm like, hang on a minute. So in the Old Testament, they literally cut the throat of a lamb, spread the blood on the door, and then that lamb was then a foreshadowing to the absolute destruction of a divine being in the next iteration of that story. How can you get? How is that love and light? You know, it's just like it's it's like a horror film. Yes, I know it's mad, but yeah, whatever.
Well,
Horses for
and
courses.
that's Old Testament and New Testament, all right? They're like not similar. They
Mm.
don't, in my opinion, seem to be discussing the same God. But I mean, the New Testament really
Uh
doesn't have a lot to do with God. It has a lot to do with Jesus Christ.
yeah. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff magically with this. I won't discuss too much with here. I'm not gatekeeping for anyone accuses me of bandit comments. It's just you get to a point and then you're like, wow, okay, I want to learn about this. You know what I mean? I don't want to like shove stuff down your throat if you don't want to learn about it. So discover it if you want. It's there. It's all there. Like even just by what I said, right in the Old Testament, like they literally killed a lamb, the Paschal lamb, right? And then Jesus Christ is the Lamb of the world, right? The Lamb that
Oh,
came
right.
out of that. Yeah. So it's linked there. That's how it's linked. Because he,
Mhm.
like, if you look at it, like the lamb died in the Old Testament as it was a foreshadowing, it's foreshadowing to him coming again and dying again to prevent death from taking everyone else. That's why when he went to the realm of the dead and then basically done what he did there. So it's the same story again, basically, but in a different way. So,
So, as from Christian mysticism, what are the primary lessons that you take? Right, because I assume you read the Bible maybe a little bit differently than your average Christian. What is
yeah.
Christian mysticism, and what are the lessons you take from it?
Christian mysticism for me is like one of the only complete mystery schools that is still in existence at the moment. Like it's still alive and kicking. Like it's not a resurrected like form or whatever. Like it's still there. It's like churches everywhere. You can go to any church or whatever, and you can basically learn Christian mysticism if you have eyes to see it. You know what I mean? It's basically the discovery of your divine nature. Like, and if you look at like the creations, teachings of Jesus, is basically discovering that divine in you. That's it. But that's what everything is trying to do. It's like discover your true divine identity, right? It's not. I don't think it's any different to any other tradition, if you will. But the way it works for me the way like my mind, or like the way I tick, the way all my cogs interact. It works perfectly because it's about all of the qualities that I uphold as a human being. You know what I mean? Like honesty, all this stuff like that, right? Doing the right thing in accordance with divine law. Because like for me, like when I first got into magic and stuff like that, there was just loads of people slinging loads of spells around with no level of maturity in it. It was like, haha, I want to go out with this girl, love spell, boom, binding. And I was like, yeah, but that's just boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's the grit? You know what I mean? Where's the meaning behind it? Like where's the thing that ties it? Like with Gabriel, take Gabriel for example, right? So Gabriel's a messenger. He shows up at every point, like even in the Quran as well. He shows up all the time delivering messages. And if you look in every sort of like tradition, there's always a messenger that comes in and delivers things of birth and stuff like that, right? So with
It's
Christian
Thoth.
mysticism,
It's, it's
yeah,
Thoth.
literally,
It's Hermes. It's Mercury.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just that whole thing of like, okay, I can spend ages because I've worked with like loads of different pantheons and stuff like that, right? So it's not like I've just gone, no, like that's a load of crap, whatever. I'm just gonna go to a Christian life. Like I went that route first. Like the Christian stuff was like there, right? It was kind of like always there. It's like foreshadowing that I was gonna go into it. And then did all the pagan stuff, and then worked back round to that. And I was like, oh, it gave me such like a sense of wonder around, as I was saying earlier, right? Because I've discovered it myself. Like no one forced me to do it. No one like every Sunday morning tries to tell me I was a failure or an incorrect member of society or whatever. So I didn't do such and such. I went to it like willingly. Um, so yeah, it's really hard to put into words what it can actually do. But I would implore anyone that if like whatever tradition that you're doing or whatever, right, and it hasn't hit the spot, and you want something that will like stop you dead in your tracks and go, yes, give it a try. Just even if you read the Old Testament with the eyes of a magician, do that. You don't have to like get any of the dogma. You don't have to do any of that. Just read it with like an open heart and actually look at what's happening, and it will make something start to happen. Like when we were talking about Thoth, right? We were talking about Thoth and we was like we just followed the path, yeah,
Yeah.
and we just let stuff unravel. Or just read it. If something unravels, then it unravels. If it doesn't unravel, something else will make it unravel. They all point to the same destination anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you get there, right? So I know it's quite a theosophical way of looking at it, but yeah, it's I think if you follow every tradition properly and not in sort of like a modernization of it or something like that, you will get there. But talking about subjective like yesodic reality and stuff like that, right? I think that actually acts as a filter over a lot of traditions. So people try and turn a tradition into something that they want rather than something that it is. And then they say, oh, but there's loads of holes in this tradition. It's like, yeah, the holes in that tradition, that holes are in that tradition because you're looking at it for a filter. You take that filter off, the holes aren't there anymore, you know?
Yeah. I just occurred to me. So I'm picturing two circles like of Vesica Pisces, right? And on the left, you've got objective reality. And
Mm-hmm.
This is something I love to talk about. Objective reality, people don't have any idea what that is. Objective reality is physics and nothing else. Objective reality is what you can measure in distance, time, and form. And if you can't measure it in distance, time, and form, then it's not objective reality, it's subjective reality. And so, there's religions, there's mystery schools, there's magical practices, there's all these things that can give structure to your subjective reality, right? But I think like the ultimate kind of underlying truth is that subjective reality informs objective reality in a very serious way, or at least that we live 98% of our lives in subjective reality and not objective reality, but we think that it's objective. So if you can fill someone's subjective reality with a particular belief system, for whatever reasons, and it could be for really wonderful reasons or it could be very nefarious reasons, right? But you're informing that person's objective reality through their beliefs. And I think that's really like the power structure of it at its core. And I'm just kind of rambling on here with just this thought, but like, it's so fascinating to say you could fill that subjective reality with something really structured, like you're talking about, like Solomonic magic, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you give a person all the tools and all the steps and all the everything they need to have great power and influence over physical reality, because you've filled that cup, right? That subjective reality cup with something that makes sense, right? And I think at their core, these different traditions, like you were saying, aren't just there to fill your subjective reality with something. It's a system. They're all systems, right? To get at something that's like ineffable, this kind of like magical truth of reality. It's just a way to lead you there. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's kind of describing like your experience with Thoth, and my experience with Thoth is he's trying to get us to create these structures within our subjective reality.
Yeah, no, yeah, I completely agree. It's as you were saying that, it just like flipped a couple of switches in my head, right? So like, if you view Old Testament God, this is the first thing I jump onto the next thing, but if you view Old Testament God as the ineffable, right, which he is, and then you, Jesus is the mouthpiece between you and the ineffable, then you have Mary as well, right? So you got Mary, who then goes and talks to Jesus, who then goes and talks to God, right? So Mary is the closest thing to us because she was not human and she ascended to become the Queen of Angels, Queen of Heaven, right? Then she goes and talks to Jesus, who is God incarnate in man. So he's like basically one with God anyway. So he's like if you look at Old Testament God as like the justice, blah, 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 fire throwing, whatever. And then Jesus is like the one that's like, hey, calm down, man. Like, let's deal with this like in a proper way. So it's kind of like like a family therapy session, really, right? About how to deal with a problem. But yeah, it's that, yeah, that's what I say about that. But it's, I think with structure, like you need, sorry, with any kind of system, the system allows the divine to manifest in a way. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
And that's like with your Sodic stuff as well. That's it. Like in Kabbalistic terms, everything has to go through the moon, so it has to manifest in that to come into reality anyway. So if you go in
Yes.
like a Kabbalistic system, it will manifest in that way. If you go into a Christian mystical system, it'll manifest in that way. Like that's why you got. That's what I was saying about like me working with loads of different deities. I've literally worked with every mercurial deity going, right? And it was all the same stuff, but just in a different skin with a different a different way of going about stuff, a different like minutia, you know what I mean? Like, just different stuff. So yeah, it was and that's why I don't, when people say, oh, like, hang on a minute, you're a Christian mystic or you're a Solomon magician, but have you got a statue of Ganesha? And I'm like, because Ganesha rules.
Yeah.
And they're like, but how? Like you practice that? And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like it's not about that. Like at some point in time I worked with Ganesha, at some point in time I worked with both, or I worked with Hermes or whatever. That was the point on my journey. Like I still respect and honor that. And what I'm actually seeing a lot, like especially on YouTube, and that's why I try to stay off YouTube, don't really post stuff, is because it's like people jump around this stuff all the time and they don't actually respect their journey. They just say
Yeah.
1 week they're this, 1 week they're that, and they don't respect their heritage. And there's a lot of people that say like, oh, I respect my heritage because my ancestors did this, but like some of those people are not even following their own path. They're like, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to follow what my ancestors did, and then hopefully I'll find my way. You know what I mean? I'll find my way to what I actually want to be. So it's just
Yeah.
another stepping stone, really. But yeah, like be proud of your journey, really. Like, yeah,
Yeah. And take it seriously. So, when you were saying, um, about working, being a Christian mystic, and somebody saying, oh, you can't do that. That's like saying you can't learn 2 languages. Of course you can, right? Because these different magical systems are like languages, right? They're languages to communicate with the all, with the universe, whatever you want to call it, right?
yeah,
So of course you can learn more than one language. What I would not recommend is, again, like you were just saying, is learning a couple words in a particular language and be like, all right, I know it now, and then moving on to the next one. Learn the language. If you're going to learn a language, learn the whole fucking language and then move on. But I don't think people, people are impatient. Um,
structure and discipline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
honestly,
I
like
think
in that sense, I speak a couple of languages, but I'm not perfectly fluent in any particular one.
yeah, I think there's actually a cool thing though about like learning a couple of words in language and learning a couple of words in another language, because you start to see the
The
relationship between
connections.
those.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
and then that spurs you want to learn more. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah,
like, oh, hang on a minute. Like
yeah,
in regards to like Solomonic stuff, like when you like you go from part of like Christian mysticism and Solomonic stuff, you're like, oh, hang on a minute, this is cool. Like I'm playing like comparison here. You know what I mean? And then it makes you want to dive further into it. And then that's when you really pick up the pace and you're like, right, that's when you say, if I just learn one language, then I can go back and I can stop doing this bouncing, like this yo-yoing thing, and I can just go, right, I'll learn this, then I'll jump into that, because then I'll be able to do the whole thing and then just have this massive excitement fest or whatever, and yeah, big aha moment. So yeah,
yeah.
there's
And
various ways around it.
those big aha moments are priceless on this journey, and I would never want to deny them and from anybody. Like they're discovering this stuff on your own, like we were talking about earlier, it's so important. And I know that, in my course in particular, I give people everything. Like I give them the whole fucking almost everything I know in 29 days, 20 years of it, 25 years of information to try to squeeze into this 29 days. I can introduce them to the concepts, and explain the concepts, but I can't teach someone all 78 tarot cards in a month. That's impossible. You know, it's not impossible, but in the structure of my course, it's impossible. But I can introduce them to the concept of tarot, and then they can have those discoveries, through each individual card. And I think that
Mm.
there is beauty in taking the long way, like I did. But at the same time, I feel like the way the world is right now, we need people. People have lost so much of their autonomy. There's
Yeah,
so, I mean, I would say that there's a problem right now with the entire world being stuck in that episodic consciousness and mistaking
yeah,
it for the objective reality.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
I think it is good to fast track people, but so that's what I was going to say about Christian mysticism. And people will probably come at me and say, well, actually, you meant this or whatever. I know exactly what I mean when you say this. Christian mysticism teaches ethics. And I'm not going to get into the whole like thing in regards to Christian abortions and stuff like that, and like the sort of wars with the with certain communities really, because there's a lot of like certain Christian communities are at war with a lot of people really, but at heart like true ethics, you know what I mean? Like even if you look at the Ten Commandments, like don't lie, don't steal, don't do this, whatever. It's basic like basic courtesy really to a fellow human being. Um, and you once you get those concepts down, that will make you a far better magician than going and like paying thousands, not like thousands upon thousands of dollars for someone to teach you this like a Gremlin, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
you're probably much more likely to get through the Gremlin operation if you have all of the like Ten Commandments like down and
Yeah.
nailed. You know what I mean? Like because
Yeah.
you have discipline. So
You know, I can't think of any one of the 10 commandments that I have an issue with at all. Um,
yeah,
and I don't fully understand their magical power, but one thing I do understand, and that I emphasize to all my students, is that being honest makes you
yeah,
more powerful as a magician, because magic, a lot of it comes from your word, right? The word magic, spelling, spells, all of it comes from what you say. And if you're a person who frequently lies to yourself or lies to others, then the power of your word is diminished. That means
yeah,
the
definitely.
power of your magic is diminished.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. I found swearing as well. I actually gave up swearing. Um, just quit it, stop.
Wow.
And yeah, because that's powerful. Like they're called curse words for a reason, right? And when you're doing that all the time, you're firing that crappy energy out there. Like
Yeah.
Isaiah 55:11, like bring up Isaiah 55:11 and read it. Like it's all there, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But it basically talks about like whatever you put out there, it will come back at you, right? It'll come back at you and punch you in the face. But there's so much stuff in the Bible that is just like flat out wisdom. It's so good, it's unreal. And I'll stand and I'll die on that hill. I don't care. It's great. But like, if you're just going into magic and you're like going, well, how do I learn to cast a circle and stuff like that? Like reading the Bible magically, you might not recognize it. But if you read it with like no prior knowledge, some things will make something click. And then later on, the stuff will manifest. Like you'll read it, so you put it in here, right? You're basically doing sigil magic by reading the Bible. Then that stuff
Yeah.
will manifest in your life. It'll manifest in experience, so you can understand that text. That's why in Christian mysticism there's such an emphasis on reading scripture. It's not to sit there and be like, I must read the word of God because God will come and smite me with a thunderbolt if I don't. It's no, read it so it puts it in your mind. So you're basically using the Bible as a sigil. You know what I mean? It's a hyper sigil, if you will, for
Yep.
yourself. It's a hyper sigil for everyone.
Yeah.
But if like people were adverse to it for some reason, but hang on a minute, this is a literal book about the ineffable God, Kefa, right? And you can read it and you can have a hyper sigil with God, the ineffable. Why would you not want to do that? You know what I mean? Like, why would you like that? That's great. I wish someone told me that years ago, you know? And I'd have been like, yeah, give me all the Bible. So I read it in every different language. I'll learn every language in the world if it comes out as different translations, just to get a different effect in my life. But yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
literally like the most widespread hypersigil ever, really. But yeah,
do you have any tips for understanding the Bible? Because I've read it. I've read it, but I don't I couldn't tell you like I fully understood it. I definitely couldn't say that.
okay. So it's the one of the easiest things to do is related to your own life, right? So like you have the whole Cain and Abel deal. Look at like take the story of Cain and Abel and apply it to your own life,
Yeah.
and see a time when you have acted out of frustration or out of like unknowing, like not knowing your own strength. Magically, that story is amazing. Like for curse work, before you do any curse, any hex on anyone, go and read the story of Cain and Abel and be like, am I throwing a boulder at his head when actually I just meant to throw a stone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to get back at him. And you can use it like that.
And the story of Cain and Abel to me, is the story of, the consequences of a victimhood mentality,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
actions that an insistence upon a victimhood mentality will lead you to murder your brother. Perhaps like
Yeah.
something unthinkable becomes
Yeah.
thinkable when you're in that state of consciousness, right? When you insist on staying there.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And like if you take like I don't know, like hypothetically you have two witches or two wizards going at it, like they forget they're also human beings and they can just talk, but no, they're slinging hexes at each other. And then one goes too far because they're like, no, I'm the victim. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was them. And then they go, I'm fully justified to basically throw some comets or something down them. And then it ends their life. And then something serious has happened, and then well, you know how the story goes. But yeah, it's great for meditation. That's why I love it so much. Like you could literally take the Ten Commandments, meditate on them properly, like really properly, and get some amazing results, like manifest in your life from it. But why do that when you have an entire Bible? You know what I mean? And even if people try and use the arguments of, oh, it's been edited and stuff like that, right? Like, so, like you
Yeah.
can meditate on something that has been like pulled out of a like writing writing session in a penthouse in like New York, which you can still meditate on and find some wisdom in that. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like
And
finding
that's
the root of
true
that
of
knowledge.
almost all religious texts also, right? Like for
Yeah,
example, the closest thing we have to understanding the Norse religion are the Eddas, and the Eddas were written by a Christian 400 years after the Viking Age. But it's the
yeah,
closest thing we have, right? And so that's the go-to. It's the Bible's the closest thing we have, right? Like again, there's the Dead Sea Scrolls. I know there's the Book of Enoch and the Book of Judas, for example, the non-canonical Bible stories. But I'm not educated on those well enough to say, what do you
yeah.
think about the non-canonical Bible stories?
Mate, I love it. Mate, you should read the Infant Gospel of Jesus. He's a badass. Like he literally kills people. Like he walks around killing people. Like there's a story where this guy falls through the roof, like they're jumping over roofs, and he falls through the kid falls through the roof, and his parents come in. They're like, Jesus, why did you kill him? And he's like, I didn't kill him. So he raises him back up from the dead, just long enough so the kid can turn around and tell the parents that he didn't kill him, and it was actually the kid's fault, and then he lets him die. And basically the way it ends is Joseph has a word with him. He's like, Jesus, you've got to stop killing people. Like, but he's like, not, well, it's like, guess we're grumpy about it. And then Joseph is like, no, like, you need to stop killing people. And he's like, but I'm a god, basically. And he's like, right, fine. So he just like basically clicks his fingers to sum it up. And then everything that he's done goes back to normal. So people think that Jesus of the Bible was like, you know what I mean? They think he's like a weakling or whatever, but he learned. And that, like, if you look at the infant gospel of Jesus, it's like that's basically what magicians do. They mess up, they do all this stuff, and then they grow up, and then they start using magic in the right way, you know.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully,
if you look at the wedding, yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
Continue. That's fine.
Right on, man. Well, Robert, that's all the time we've got. But thank you so much for being on the show. That was really, really fascinating. I kind of want to go read the Bible now.
One more combat. No, I'm joking. Just joking.
Well, you know, I mean, listen, as an occultist, like I do think it's you know, we want to absorb as much information as possible. And
Yeah.
sounds like there's a lot in there. So, you know, maybe I'll give it a go.
Yeah, check it out. Just before we go, I would definitely say to anyone who wants to go the more hermetic route stuff to go and read the Gospel of Thomas as well.
Yeah.
I think the Gospel of Thomas is a hermetic text in
really?
disguise. Yeah.
Very interesting.
When you look at it, you love your hermetic stuff, mate. Go and read it, right? And then there's bit where it's like when I think it's like when the two become one, the one become two, right? Does that speak to you at all?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nuts. You'll love it.
Right on. And your project with Dyra how's that going? Is that up and running?
So we've had applicants and stuff like that. We're just waiting to push some more stuff out. I am gonna go hang with it. Basically, I've just been preparing loads of stuff in the background. We've also got a course on Santa Morte as well, which is like the second part of the course. Dyra done the first half, and then we're collabing on the second half as well. So yeah, both those are live now. Yeah. I'm guessing the links will be down like the show notes and stuff as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say give me those links, and I'll make sure that they're in the show description so that people can check that out. And yeah, man, thank you so much for being here.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.